A man showed up at our door, saying my daughter ran off without paying $3,000 at his fancy steakhouse, said Bill. He claimed to be the head chef, but I couldn't believe it. I'm Layla, 30 years old, living with my husband Daniel and our daughter Emma. There was no way Emma could do such a thing. I stood firm against their fierce expressions, defending my daughter's innocence. I was tricked by an ex-boyfriend who took $3,000 from me and then disappeared when I found out I was pregnant with his baby. I tried to contact him, but he was gone. I was left alone, divorced and almost broke. But I didn't give up. I had Emma and was ready to face whatever came next. Then the news came that my ex was arrested. The man who told me was Daniel, now my husband. He stood by me through everything, even though I was tired and worn out. Despite our age gap, I was drawn to Daniel's strength and reliability. I worried he wouldn't accept me because I was divorced, but he did. Now we're happily together, with a good relationship with Daniel's parents. One day, I got a call from Daniel's parents. My mother-in-law's voice, full of warmth, asked if we could visit. They wanted to see their granddaughter, whom they adore despite not being related by blood. I happily agreed and promised to let Daniel know. After exchanging pleasantries, my mother-in-law ended the call. It takes about 5 hours to reach their countryside home from the city where we live. When Daniel returned home in the evening, I excitedly told him about the invitation from his parents. "Well, I haven't taken any vacation this month yet," he replied. "Let's take some time off and go see them. I'll ask my boss if we can have a few days off in a row," Daniel suggested eagerly, dialing his boss for permission. Thankfully, his boss agreed, and we began looking forward to reuniting with his parents after a long while. However, on the day of our visit, Daniel suddenly had to work. "You go ahead. I'll join you as soon as I'm done. It might be late, possibly not until tomorrow morning," he explained, kissing us goodbye before heading to the office. I quickly informed my in-laws about the change of plans and then embarked on the journey with my daughter. As soon as we arrived at my in-laws' house, they welcomed us warmly, and we settled in comfortably. They were eagerly awaiting Daniel's arrival. The next morning, my in-laws went about their usual routine, heading to the barn. I offered to help, but they insisted I relax and enjoy my visit, so I stayed behind, waiting for their return. Suddenly, the doorbell rang too early for Daniel's arrival. Assuming it was a neighbor, I hurried to answer it. "I'm coming," I called out, opening the door to find a stern-looking man in his 70s standing there. He glared at me and then demanded, "I own the local steakhouse. Your daughter ate there and left without paying. You owe me $3,000. His words caught me off guard, and I blinked in surprise. He went on to explain that a young girl had visited his restaurant the previous night. Despite being warned that it was too expensive for her, she consumed $3,000 worth of food and drinks before leaving without paying. He claimed she was my daughter and insisted that as her parent, I should foot the bill. I shake my head, trying to explain, but he's too angry to listen. "Can I know your name?" I ask. "It's Ethan. Now pay up," he snaps back. "I need to check with my in-laws if they know you," I respond. "What? Shouldn't you be paying me instead of wasting time?" "Yes, but please give me a moment." I ask him to wait and quickly call my in-laws to confirm something. They respond fast, revealing a surprising fact. Trying to keep my composure, I turn to the man. "I can't pay you," I tell him. "What? You don't care if my business suffers? If you don't pay, I'll call the police," he threatens. "Please, let's try to sort out this misunderstanding," I plead. "There's no misunderstanding. I got her name when she dined," Ethan insists, reaching for his phone to call the police. A policeman happened to pass by, and the steakhouse owner flagged him down to explain the situation. The officer approached me with a stern look and said, "Can we talk?" Confused and intimidated by his gaze, I didn't know what to do. "Your daughter is suspected of dining and dashing. If things remain unresolved, we'll have to take her into custody," he informed me, insisting that I hand over my daughter immediately. "No, there's been a mistake. My daughter wouldn't do such a thing." I protested, but the officer remained firm. Sensing the tension, the steakhouse owner intervened, offering a compromise. "I'm not heartless. If you can pay, I'll forgive her. After all, we're neighbors, he said, looking at me. Are you sure about this, Ethan? The officer asked. Of course. She's just a young girl. It's an honor she wanted to eat at my place, Ethan replied with a laugh. The officer then presented me with an option. Ethan is giving you a way out. Pay the $3,000 bill and he won't press charges. Despite the pressure, I stood firm in my decision. As I tried to explain, the steakhouse owner's face turned red with anger and he shouted, "You're rejecting my kindness. Is this how you've taught your daughter to behave? Don't play games with me. Please calm down. Why are you refusing to pay? If you don't, your daughter will face serious consequences." The police officer interjected, looking puzzled. I can't agree to this without considering all the facts, I responded, but the steakhouse owner interrupted with a laugh, saying, My apologies. Are you saying you don't have $3,000 on you right now? No worries. We all forget things as we get older. We do accept credit cards at our establishment. If you trust me with your card, I can process the payment now and return it to you later. How does that sound? With that, he gestured for me to fetch my wallet. I declined to hand over my credit card, expressing concern about the risk and instead offered to accompany him to settle the payment. However, the steakhouse owner responded with threats, raising his fist and shouting, Don't you trust me? I'm in the credit business. Be careful what you say, or you'll regret it. When I insisted on accompanying him, he became agitated, yelling, You're disrespecting me. I have connections with influential organizations. If you can't pay, I have ways to make you pay $3,000. That's why I've involved the police. Shocked by his words, I looked to the police officer for assistance, but he avoided eye contact, feigning ignorance. Officer, did you hear that? Is this allowed? I asked, seeking help. The officer avoided the question, stating, I didn't hear anything. Just pay the money and everything will be resolved. Layla, just follow instructions. The officer insisted sternly. I was stunned. How could a police officer say that? I felt bewildered as the steakhouse owner continued to intimidate me with his threats. Most people would give in to their demands to avoid trouble, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Aren't the police supposed to protect citizens? Why were they siding with him? Despite my desperate pleas, the officer remained silent, refusing to intervene. Feeling helpless, I turned to the steakhouse owner. Why won't you listen? He growled, glaring at me. It's not that I'm not taking you seriously. I can't believe I'm in this situation. I thought to myself, steadfastly refusing to comply, but neither the officer nor the steakhouse owner seemed willing to listen to reason. As I pondered my next move, a taxi pulled up outside our house, and my husband stepped out, looking puzzled. What's going on? Who are these people? He asked, bewildered. Sir, your wife needs to take responsibility. Let me explain, the officer began, but my husband's expression quickly changed to surprise as he listened. Then, with a mischievous grin, he seemed to understand everything. Sorry for the confusion. My apologies. By the way, officer, which department do you work for? Can I see your badge? My husband inquired suddenly, catching everyone off guard. The officer hesitated but eventually produced his badge from his pocket. This looks suspicious, my husband remarked, causing the officer to start sweating nervously. Daniel chuckles and says, Just kidding. The police officer, visibly relieved, manages a forced smile. Daniel then asks about the officer's department and rank. Is that necessary right now? The officer responds nervously. I'm just curious, Daniel says. I'm a constable stationed at the police box. The officer answers. Ah, I see. You must be new around here. Thanks for your service, Daniel replies politely. Yes, I'm still getting acquainted. Would you mind if I contact your station? Can I use the name on your badge? Daniel asks, pulling out his phone. Before he can proceed, the officer interrupts. Before we get into that, can you tell me if you're able to pay for Ethan's bill? He urges Daniel for an answer regarding the payment issue. The steakhouse owner, Ethan, appeared taken aback by my husband's assertiveness, his earlier aggression dissipating. You're the husband, so take responsibility, Ethan insisted. Yes, but I don't have a job that pays that much, Daniel responded calmly. That doesn't excuse dodging your bills, Ethan retorted. Unperturbed, Daniel shrugged. Anyway, he continued, can you tell me your gun's serial number? Ethan looked confused. Why? He asked. It's a standard verification method, Daniel explained. Knowing the number doesn't pose a risk. It's widely accepted. The police officer, also puzzled, questioned Daniel's request. Is that so? He inquired. Observing their reactions, my suspicions grew stronger. By the way, Daniel interjected, giving them a stern look. Would you like to hear my take on this dine and dash incident? They both seemed puzzled by his unexpected suggestion. In conclusion, you're a phony cop trying to run a scam with that old man, my husband accused, catching them off guard. Do you have any proof? They retorted. Then prove I'm wrong, my husband challenged. Turning to me, he said, Lee, bring her here. I rushed to bring our precious child forward, positioning her in front of us to prevent any harm. Daniel stood protectively between us. My daughter is only 1 year old. She can't even walk, let alone dine and dash, he asserted. The two were stunned, mouths agape. That's impossible. Is that really Aria Taylor? Ethan questioned. Of course. I'm only 30 years old. When else could I have had my first child? I countered. Ethan, visibly shaken, took a step back, exchanging a glance with the police officer who nodded in agreement. It seems there's been a mistake. Sorry for the confusion, they stammered, preparing to leave. Daniel intervened, blocking their escape routes as they attempted to leave. I retreated to the entrance, observing through a gap in the door. Can you step aside, please? The officer demanded. No, we won't let you go. You might be scammers, and we won't allow it, Daniel countered firmly. Don't try to intimidate us. I'm a police officer. If you don't move, I'll arrest you for obstructing an investigation, the officer threatened, attempting to push past Daniel, but he swiftly moved to block him again. I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I'm Daniel Taylor, Chief Inspector of the New York Investigation Division, Daniel announced, revealing his genuine police badge. Unlike the officers, Daniel's badge gleamed with authenticity. Who's the liar now? I'm the real deal, he declared confidently. Whether you're genuine or not, you've engaged in fraud, correct? It's a disgrace for someone in law enforcement. Do you even understand the role of the investigation division? Daniel pressed. What are you talking about? You're clueless about the investigation division, he continued. The division handles complex crimes like fraud, embezzlement, counterfeiting, election violations, financial crimes, defamation, and high-tech offenses. In simpler terms, it deals with criminals like you, Daniel explained sternly. With that, he swiftly produced handcuffs and began to arrest them. Unable to resist Daniel's professional approach, the two were quickly subdued. Daniel wasted no time in contacting the authorities. I've apprehended fraudsters on the scene. This is beyond my jurisdiction. Please dispatch officers from the appropriate area immediately, he instructed over the phone. As they heard Daniel's call, the scammers' faces drained of color. Please forgive us. We were desperate for money. It's our first offense. Please let us go, they pleaded. Just then, my in-laws arrived with the police. Are you all right? Sorry for the delay. This guy was terrible at explaining things. My in-laws apologized. It's all right. Wait, you're here too. What a relief, I responded as they embraced me and our daughter. I had been on edge throughout the ordeal, but finally, I could relax and exhale a sigh of relief as the two fraudsters were escorted into a police car. Initially, I had suspected only the old man to be involved in the scam. When I phoned my in-laws, I inquired if anyone named Ethan resided nearby. They were unfamiliar with the name, having lived in the area for years and knowing all the residents. Their lack of recognition confirmed that this Ethan was not a local. Moreover, considering my daughter's age of just 1, it was implausible for her to have been involved in any dine and dash scheme. Though I hadn't explicitly requested it, my in-laws grasped the urgency of the situation and promised to summon the police. While awaiting their arrival, I felt a surge of tension, resolved to safeguard my daughter. I had sensed something amiss with the police officer from the moment he appeared. As our conversation progressed, my distrust towards him only deepened. Although I lacked concrete evidence initially, Daniel's interrogation ultimately confirmed my suspicions of his falsity. Thankfully, Daniel's presence had averted a potential disaster this time. However, the thought of what could have transpired in his absence sent shivers down my spine. I'm truly relieved that everything ended safely. With Daniel's assistance and the local authorities' involvement, the case regarding the two fraudsters was swiftly resolved. Upon investigation, it became evident that numerous charges awaited them. Daniel recounted the details to me, wearing a mixture of sadness and anger on his face. Surprisingly, it turned out that these individuals were not affiliated with any organization, and their exploits garnered nationwide attention through the news. Thanks to Daniel and my considerate in-laws, I was able to spend an extra day at their home. The news of Daniel's heroic actions spread rapidly, prompting our neighbors to bring over an array of delicacies, turning our gathering into an impromptu celebration. Even our daughter seemed to revel in the joyous atmosphere, remaining cheerful throughout the evening. That night, as I gazed at my daughter's contented face, I couldn't help but bask in the warmth of our happiness.